Okay. Right on after last week, I hope many of you who had heard it were able to hold the Dharma of Mr. Rogers close to your heart. Um, Tonight I'm doing a little science. And to be honest, I started research on this just one website, and it was definitely above my pay grade. I had to read very closely and was lost a lot of the time, and it was reminding me I'm not a brain scientist, but it was still good to do. So today's research came from, it's online, meditation.mgh.harvard.edu. So it's a research they did at Harvard. And they said so much research had been done on so many types of meditation, yet no one had done meditation researching wow, I'm really going to shoot myself in the foot here, huh? Naroda Samipati, which is the third noble truth. That there is a way to be free from suffering. And so they did all this research on people, mainly with interviews. They didn't attach electrodes on people's brains and stuff. I think that would be a lot cooler, but they got a lot of people, they interviewed them, spoke with them, and found out what they could about this state of consciousness. And the 8 steps of samadhi, they went through that too. And we're not going to go through all that because that's technical. I don't think we need to know that tonight, but it's just good to know that there are 8 steps. And if you want to look it up, you can. But when they did their research, they discovered quite a few things. The first thing is that people pass through various stages of samadhi on their ability to be able to do this Nirodha, and I will describe it more, and maybe even pronounce it correctly one day. I don't know. But concentration and tranquility is one on the way to that. As close as I can tell, Nirodha Samipati is cessation attainment. That's almost the direct translation. It's the ability to, I don't want to say turn off, but to let go to where they cease. So it's not like I'm flipping a switch. It's just like I'm letting it slow down until it ceases. My feelings and my perceptions and my thinking. When they did this research with different folks, they discovered that many people, even early meditators, have short gaps, really short. It could be measured in seconds, usually is measured in seconds, where they do achieve these states where they are not thinking or caught up in their feelings or are overloaded by their perceptions. The perceptions are there, but they're not overloaded by them. So it is a thing, even with beginners, that this stuff happens. And I find that cool because according to the Soto School of Zen in Japan, they talk about short, quick, little intermittent bursts of enlightenment that happen on the way, and that's part of their practice. And so I think that's really cool. They also described getting to this state as a mastery of vipassana or insight meditation, and jhanas, which is the same as samatha or deepening concentration. So the ability to concentrate, and I did this meditation a lot today since I had a day off. I actually spent time doing it, and I'm like, I do a lot of chanting and then I do short meditations, but I spent time just actually letting go of thoughts. A lot of times I'll follow my thoughts, but letting go and seeing if they'll cease. And they're right. For good periods of time, maybe a minute or two, they'd go away, and then something would come up, usually a disruption. Oh, the cat just jumped on my head. Something's going on over there. Sometimes it was my own head. Oh, what do I want to eat? You just had lunch. Oh, I feel guilt. Okay, let's get back to this, you know? And that's after a couple minutes of, pretty not thinking, but it just shows, And I could see, the beautiful thing is I can see my thoughts. I can see the processes when they come up. And one thing they is brought up is that it appears when people enter these states, even very short ones, where you turn off, I use the word turn off, I didn't want to do that, but where we release our thoughts and release our feelings and release our perceptions. When they come back, we gain an understanding of how our own minds are constructed, our own consciousness is constructed, because we see how everything awakens in order, right? And if I look back and reflect on that whole awakening of that guilt trip I had over food and thinking about food, I can see, okay, there's the interruption of my head suddenly deciding it wanted food, right? And then me going off and saying, what do I want? And then me recognizing it, and then me chastising myself for doing it. And then me recognizing that I can just let go of this and return to the state I was in before. But I could see that buildup. So as Buddhist practitioners, or whatever practitioners we are, people who practice meditation, we are more likely to recognize what constitutes a craving. And that is important. One beautiful thing, and I said they didn't hook people up. They obviously did hook people up, because there are things where they measured brain patterns, our waves. And they said when people enter these states, especially people who are skilled and can enter these states at will and stay in them for a while, they recognize increased gamma signature. That's a wave that happens in our brain. And it's not, I hear alpha signatures when people talk about meditation all the time, but this is the first time I've heard someone talk about gamma signatures. This is science. What is so wild is gamma signatures are associated with unlearning things that we are habitually conditioned to believe and do. So it shows a direct value of practicing meditation and Buddhist or whatever practices people do, Taoist, Hindu, Christian, but it shows a direct benefit of practicing those things and decreasing our cravings and increasing our ability to resist craving, and to also not get caught in our own opinions as much, just like every Buddhist text ever written describes. It reminds me, when I first started meditating in the 90s, early 90s, I'd read these books. The first book I read was this great big thick book by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And I wish I could remember what it was called, but after I did my homework, because I was going to Eastern and I was working and I was on the bus, I'd close this book and I would meditate for good periods of time, because I had time on the bus. And then when I went in working, I began just telling people I don't exist, because I recognized that the I thought existed really didn't exist. And I did that exercise for a long time. I don't exist. My opinions change all the time. My thoughts change all the time. My feelings change all the time. My physical conditions and perceptions change constantly. Everything is constant change. Everything about me is in constant flux. I do not really exist. Now, this is where I bring in the wonderful statement that that's true and not true. So, I do exist. Obviously, I'm here. If I didn't show up at work, I wouldn't get a paycheck, and I could end up on the street, and serious consequences could happen to me. Karma's, my one true possession, right? So I do exist, but in another way, I don't. The John who was a 5-year-old is not the same as a John who is a 58-year-old. Another weird thing, which I don't understand, when they did look at the scans and they noticed the gamma waves, they also noticed that NS, they started calling it NS because, scientist, but that means Nirodha Samepati, third noble truth, release of suffering, right? It means cessation. They noticed that this can look an awful lot like anesthesia. And they didn't know what to make of that. It's like they put people under anesthesia to do surgery on them, and they're not aware. And here they're looking at it, and the brain looks an awful lot like it's in anesthesia, yet the person is aware. So that's crazy. I don't know what to make of that, but it is an interesting thing that they noticed. I'm also noticing when you come out of this, we can see the five. They call them khandhas here, but I've heard them called skandhas too, the 5 aggregate parts. And I don't want to go through all those, but it's thoughts, feelings, perceptions, those sorts of things. Coming out, you can recognize them. And each aggregate of these things is characterized, this is not the science, this is us, but by suffering, which is dukkha, impermanence, which is anicca, and non-self, which is anatta. Suffering, dukkha, impermanence, anicca, non-self, anatta. And this reminds me, I was at a meditation retreat, and one time, on my 5th or 6th day in the evening, for many, many hours, I entered a state where I could freely choose not to think, feel, or be caught in my perceptions. And it was wild. And one thing about that is everything became louder, everything became more vivid. So even though I wasn't caught up in my perceptions, the volume was actually turned up. But it was just there because I wasn't thinking about it, I wasn't feeling about it, I was just in it. And so I don't know if I reached that ultimate point, but I did reach a state of consciousness which is not normal for me and maintained it for a long time. So the next time I went to retreat for one of those sesshin, which is like a 1-week retreat, I was all excited for it to happen again, and it never occurred. So I'm still waiting for it. But I experience now in moments, but to experience for a long period of time, it's a life-changing experience. I feel like there's things I understand that I can't explain because I had that experience, so it's well worth pursuing. So there is a path. There is a freedom from suffering. And what I think is beautiful is the science even shows that brain patterns show that we may not reconstruct the conditioning that we had and before we went into this state of consciousness, which is extinction, which is cessation. If some of those things just die, that is part of it. It's a piece of it. It is impermanence, and it's impermanence in a beautiful way. There's nothing more beautiful than impermanence than when I have a toothache. I'm glad to know that this too will pass. It'll go away. So I'm going to turn this clock around so I'm aware of the time. I hope that made sense to you. If you want to research it yourself, again, it's with Harvard. If you look up just look up Nirodha Samepati, Harvard, this article will come up. And you can check it out yourself. And it was a hard read. I'm going to tell you that. It really, when I say give me a headache, I'm not exaggerating. My head hurt a little. I learned a new way to do Om Mani Padme Hum, which is blessed is the jewel at the heart of the lotus. And the jewel means, I'm probably getting this wrong, but the jewel always felt to me like what's real. What's real about me. That doesn't mean it's permanent, but it's what's real. It's what's there, and that's beautiful, and that's blessed. And what is real about me is probably real about everyone in this room. That place where we're just all connected, where we're all arising together. So blessed is the jewel at the heart of the lotus. And again, the lotus is the idea that something beautiful is created from mud and muck. They grow in deep mud in water, where roots shoot down into deep mud and just make these huge, gorgeous flowers. So I'll go ahead and lead Om Mani Padme Hum for a while, and we'll have some quiet meditation, and we can go into sharing. And so follow along when you feel comfortable. And we're going to start in a second. I'll get started. And you can follow along online. Another thing is you can follow along in your head. There have been times where I've just gone in my head and, the song will be going in my head. We'll be just repeating it with it. Or I'll just be doing it in my head like I'm at a meeting and I want peace of mind. And I'll do that. And I'm able to hear the meeting more because the chant anchors me. So let's give it a shot. So this way of chanting it goes. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Spend a minute breathing mindfully.
Flower. So none of these feelings need to be rejected or resisted. They just need to allow space to be themselves. So thank you all for being here. Alrighty, back to you, John.
Okay, thank you everybody for sharing your practice and your recovery. Today this is one of my favorite dedication of merits, and I haven't done it for a while, so I want to do it today. So, may all places be held sacred. May all beings be cherished. May all injustices of oppression, devaluation, and theft be fully righted, remedied, and healed. May all wounds to forest, rivers, deserts, oceans, all wounds to Mother Earth be lovingly restored to bountiful health. May all beings everywhere delight in whale song, bird song, and blue sky. May all beings abide in peace and well-being, awaken, and be free. Namaste.